Okay, let's talk a little bit about the ground reaction forces that you are utilizing to create that kinetic and kinematic sequence. So, if we're talking about side to side or lateral ground reaction forces, again, all this is coming from the ground up. You need to have something to push off of. So, for our side to side ground reaction forces, what we have is you are pushing off this trail side foot forward. You're pushing off your lead side foot backwards, right? If we take away all the other vectors and we're just talking about side to side, that's essentially what's happening. Now, it's important to know, and so that especially as we're doing drills to improve on things like this, whether we're in the gym doing drills there or on the course, is we're pushing off this inside edge of the foot. So think middle of the foot, closer towards the inside edge of the foot. That's where I'd want all your push to be coming from. You don't want to push off your trail side heel. You don't want to push off your trail side toes, right? You definitely don't want to come up on your toes. So that is where we want to feel that push coming from. Think about in that connect sequence as we start to get that lateral force from the side. Okay, we want that push coming from there. Now, when it comes to this lead side foot in the lateral forces, is we're pushing more off the ball of the big foot, of the big toe. Sorry. So I want you to think big toe, second toe comes shortly below that. And again, that pad of the foot just underneath the big toe and the second toe, that's where most of that is coming from on our lead side foot, right? So think right about there on the bottom of the foot. So it's a little bit more forward, but still a little bit more towards the inside edge of the foot. That is where the force is mostly coming from on that lead side leg. So we're pushing this way with our trail foot and pushing this way with our lead foot, right off the more of the front of the foot. Now those become really important when we start talking about like rotational ground reaction forces, but again, we're just talking about side to side here. So which side do you think has more force? This side pushing us towards where we want to go, or the side that's pushing back? Well, if we talked about braking forces already, you might know it's this lead side foot actually that has more ground reaction forces than this trail side leg, right? The lead side foot pushes back harder than this foot pushes forward. Now there's a timing to that where we start to get a little bit of this first, but again, to brake, we need that front side foot, and that's going to push back against. That's how we get that pelvis and that lateral side to side to slow down, stop immediately, and create that whip, right? So that is what's happening in the ground reaction forces from side to side. When it comes to heel to toe, or this other plane where we're thinking forward and backward, where are the ground reaction forces there? Now, the spot on the feet stays exactly the same. This is where we're pushing. But when we're talking about forward and backward forces, you're thinking this back foot, if we do like the sock on hardwood test, would be pushing backwards. So back and towards the right a little bit. Now this is combining two vectors here, but essentially this trail side foot is pushing backwards and this lead side foot is pushing forward, right? So we would slide out in front. So our friction keeps us there. So instead of this happening, this happens. It pushes this hip back. Instead of this happening, this happens. It pushes this trail side hip backwards, right? Or sorry, forward. If we slide, it would go backwards, right? So we're pushing this backwards. The friction is keeping it there. So instead it pushes it forward. This forward, pushes it backward. This backwards, pushing this forward, okay? So that is what's happening in that plane there. We talked about our side to side, front twist through here. Now, the last thing is we want to know about sagittal plane, right? So flexion and extension here. We have slightly more pressure pushing into the front of our feet than we do the heels, right? Makes sense. We have this foot about middle of the foot, middle, and then this side of the foot is a little bit more forward. If you combine those, there's a little bit more pressure pushing out on the front of your foot, which essentially pushes you backwards, right? The top half of your center of the mass will kind of go forward, and the lower half will go backwards. This is really important, this ground reaction force, to help keep you balanced, right? To keep you from extending early, because if everything is pushing out this way, then that's exactly what will happen. You'll kind of extend. But if we keep the pressure pushing forward, then it keeps you back, right? This is how we keep things back until the end of the golf swing, okay? But again, same spot on the feet, the middle inside, and then the inside front. Essentially, that's where those two forces are coming from. And these are all the ground reaction forces in all three planes that are happening. So you can consider in our training, in our programming, we make sure that we do some drills that incorporate that specifically with your trail side versus your front side foot, making sure that we're improving your force production with these details in mind. Now, these also have an effect on the torques that you're creating as well.